Welcome to Freaked Out with your co-hosts, Liz and Landon.
What's up, everybody?
We actually had a bit of a delay in the Brian Schaefer episode this week. I do apologize. Also wanted to mention that all the patrons who are currently an active patron, you guys do have to be paying the $5 a month in order to access all new episodes. We cannot lock people individually based upon how long they've been here. So the price did go from $2 to $5. We actually have had this in place since April. So if your patron amount is still $2, just know that you have to increase it in order to access those episodes. We've been getting a lot of these requests, so I just wanted to let everybody know. And if there's any more questions on how to access, or you're struggling or having issues, you can log out and log back in again. But if you have even more issues than that, you can actually reach out right to Podbean, fill out a ticket, and let them know what's going on, and they should be able to assist you.
Absolutely. We also have a bunch of help as well in our Facebook group. We've had this question many times. There's many threads on different things that people have had to do to be able to listen and access those episodes. So if you're not in our Facebook group already, please go there. That would be Freaked Out Podcast on Facebook. And it is the same logo as it is on TikTok. And there is, like I said, many threads you guys can go there and listen to. Now, Liz and I may have 2 episodes next week to make up for the delay. We want to know what you guys would like to see.
Absolutely. And unfortunately, it's very difficult for us to narrow it down because you guys all have different unsolved cases. So if you guys can just take a look at the comments people recommend, just like the comment, just so we can get a number on, we want to have something that everyone's going to enjoy.
Absolutely. If you would like, go take a look at our Freaked Out Facebook page. We have many, many, many cases in the approved list as well in those albums there. So if you like a case, go on there, heart it, like the case, something like that. Write a little comment under it, something so we can kind of get a look there to see who's going to win. We may eventually even do a poll here the next day or two to see some of the cases a lot of people want.
Absolutely. Another thing I noticed is a lot of people will come and listen to the podcast, and it's been a minute since we've introduced ourselves, so we're going to do it again. So my name is Liz. I've been doing readings for almost 21 years. I actually accidentally stumbled upon doing readings. Basically, it was kind of shoved in my face, not in a bad way. And then, I started to practice, and then I noticed I was right a lot of the time.
Now, at this point, Liz perfected her craft. And when I say perfected, I mean she dedicated her entire life to doing these readings, and she became stronger and stronger. Now, she's truly the only reader that I have ever believed in, hands down. Absolutely. I may have believed some other ones, but I don't believe that they are as good as Liz, and that is my opinion.
Aw. Well, I appreciate you. Now, obviously, Landon and I are married. We had a very complicated beginning, but we figured it out, and to this day, Landon has been my biggest fan. Landon did encourage me to pursue the TikTok realm of doing mediumship and, predictions. And almost 400,000 followers later, we decided to come up with this podcast about unsolved cases. And that's what brought us here.
We wanted to do more. We wanted to solve cases. I truly believe that Liz has a greater gift and a greater purpose than doing just readings for your regular average Joe on the side. I feel like she is meant for greatness, meant to find somebody, and that's what I feel. And that is a big reason why we started this podcast, was because we can't say a lot of stuff on TikTok like we can here or like we can on our now new YouTube channel either.
Yes, our YouTube channel.
More recently, within the last couple of months, we have, like I said, started our YouTube channel, which is where we can say even more things on there. It's only in the beginning stages, so we obviously do not have the main followers like we do on our TikToks, but we're getting there. We're getting there.
Absolutely. Landon's going to become a pro editor here soon.
We'll see.
As of right now, we're currently moving into our new place in August. It is a permanent place. We're going to be, for the first time in a while, kind of hanging out. We're very excited. So
Stuck somewhere for a long time, in my opinion.
absolutely.
We also want to mention that we do have a wish list going on our Facebook group. If anyone is interested, we have a few items that we're trying to set up with our podcast room because we're trying to make it better, trying to, always advance our podcast. So if anyone is interested, we do have a lot of people that have been asking how to go about sending us some gifts. So that would be the best way possible, going on our Amazon wish list there. And I believe the tag is like moving podcast, something like that.
We have a link right in our Facebook group too.
Absolutely. There is a link on the Facebook group as well. That's the best place to get all the information, in my opinion.
Absolutely. And the gifts will go directly to our administration and then they'll send them directly to us. So yay.
Absolutely. We have a whole team, guys. So don't feel scared or shy, like, oh, they're not going to get it. We have a whole team with their addresses and stuff that they want stuff sent to, and they will directly send it right to us.
Absolutely. And if you have any questions for our administration, you can ask on our Facebook group as well. Now, Landon and I are going to keep bringing these episodes, so thank you again for being here.
Now, when it comes to today, let's talk about what we're going to be covering. Today, we're going to be covering the episode of Tara Calico. And a lot of strange, weird, unusual things have happened with this unsolved case, and we're going to talk about that right now. Now, when it comes to these spirits, sometimes Liz has a very good connection. Sometimes it's an easy one. Sometimes it's very difficult. We often do not share those details with you unless it's very insane, but we're going to start giving you guys some more details. So how is it going with connecting with Tara?
I gotta say, now she was a very easy, fun-loving, informative, strong, smart, independent woman, but it took me a few days to connect with her because it was a difficult situation.
What was difficult about it?
I kept feeling overwhelming energy around us, almost like someone did not want her talking. We've run into this before on a few occasions, more like static. And it depletes the energy I have for the, channeling session a lot faster. So I had to take my time. Normally I can spit out an episode within a day or so, obviously with looking into the stuff, but not this one. This one took me quite a while.
Now, do we know what that static in the background is?
I believe it's her perpetrator, the person who murdered her. He doesn't want her to share the sick and disturbing details of this case. She's a baddie, though, and she's going to. It's just a little harder than normal.
Well, let's not waste any more time, so let's get into it. Tara Calico was born on February 28th, 1969. She was born in the USA and disappeared near her home in Belen, New Mexico on September 20th of 1988.
It has been widely believed that she had been kidnapped in June of 1989. Now, there is a Polaroid folder of an unidentified young woman and a boy gagged and seemingly bound, and that was televised to the public after it was found in a convenience store parking lot on Port Street in Joe, Florida.
Wow. That is very strange. A photo that possibly could be hers that was found almost a year later on September 20th. Tara left her home at approximately 9:30 a.m. to go to her daily bike ride along New Mexico State Road 47. She rode that route almost every morning and was sometimes accompanied by her mother, Patty. However, Patty stopped riding with Tara after she felt that she had been stalked by a motorist. Patty often told Tara to think about carrying mace, but she rejected that idea.
I'm being told that it was more than like a stalking situation from what I gather. Although Patty felt uneasy when she would ride with Tara, I'm being told that there was a very specific person that was constantly following their movement, specifically on this Road 47. This happened all the time, and sometimes, obviously, when Mom didn't come, Tara was a little flattered. She didn't feel like she was being followed by this vehicle. She just felt like they just so happened to be going on the same route. It looked as though the guy might have been interested in her, and I don't know, she enjoyed the male attention, wanted to flirt a little bit. It was a romantic theory in her mind, nothing too crazy. which is why her mother would be, hey, you gotta protect yourself. And that's another reason why she didn't want to do it.
Well, we do know she did have a boyfriend as well.
Yes, and she did love her boyfriend very much, but she's also, told me that she was young. There was no, at least at that moment, permanency in the relationship, just not yet. And, she was interested in seeing what was out there. She found it intriguing at the very least. She had no intention of leaving her boyfriend or anything, but, she just wanted a little attention. She shows me that she dressed up a bit more just to see if there was any sort of approach one day from this motorist.
Tara told Patty her mother to come and get her if she was not home by noon, as she had plans to play tennis with her boyfriend at 12:30 that afternoon. When her daughter did not return, Patty went searching for her along Tara's usual bike route, but she did not find her.
Pieces of Tara's Walkman and cassette tape were laying discovered along the road. Now, Patty believes she might have dropped them to attempt to mark her trail. From what I gather from Tara, there was some sort of, connection to that. We'll talk about that a little later.
There were several people that saw Tara riding her bike, which have also never been found. No one witnessed her presumed abduction, although several witnesses observed a light-colored pickup truck, a 1953 Ford with a camper shell following closely behind her.
Oh, that camper. Tingly vibes altogether. This is basically the gist of the story. They really had nothing more than that at the time of her disappearance, and her story grew cold rather quickly, and some very unusual details along the way.
Tara was also a college student, and she was very smart. She had plans to go places, and she wanted to be someone special. And all of that was taken away on this very day.
From what Tara shows me, there was often a vehicle following close by, which we talked about, but there was never this particular Ford truck. In fact, she found the vehicle unusual looking. She also noticed that the driver was extremely greasy looking, maybe had like those, mechanic outfits on. It's kind of the vibe I get. But it was never this particular Ford truck. She shows me that he was also wearing a hat. It looked like a chaotic mess within his vehicle, constantly, like there were cups thrown everywhere and fast food bags. She also shows me that he passed by a couple of times, and then he got out asking for directions, which obviously being the oldest trick in the book.
Now, did Tara give those directions to him?
She shows me that she politely stopped because originally he had passed by her one way, and then she was able to look into his vehicle, and she did notice him staring at her. It did creep her out, but it wasn't like, anything major. And it was definitely not that vehicle that had followed her previously. Now, she shows me that this guy passed by her several times, slowly, and one on the very last time is when he approached and asked for the directions. Now, she tells me that the directions were very odd. He had said something like, "Can you tell me how to get to this street?" But from what she shows me, the street was very close. In fact, it's the street that he had turned on to come back around. There was no reason for him to be confused because he passed by this road, to turn. So, what the hell?
I would have ran in the opposite direction at that point. Now, does Tara show you a clear picture of him? Like, can you see what he looks like?
Now, she shows me he was somebody who may have been in his 40s at the time. You know what, though? Could have even been a little younger. It looks like he maybe drank his body away. Definitely a little bit on the heavier set side. Big, big beer belly. She does remember hearing bottles, green bottles, but I'm also being told that it may not necessarily be alcoholic bottles in that moment. They had glass bottles back then, so you would take them and whatever. Anyways, he did have like a bald patch right at the tip of his forehead, and when he moved his hat for a moment, you could see it, and he was like sweaty. Ugh, gross. He was probably sitting in and around 6'2". He had very large hands, He was extremely aggressive in his demeanor, and from what it looks like, his hair, what was left of it anyways, was brown. I also feel like he may have been definitely mentally delayed as well.
One of the last people to see her indicated that she saw multiple people in that vehicle. Is that accurate?
From what Tara shows me, when the guy was communicating with her, she did not see anyone else. But when he actually abducted her, there were a few people in the back. We're going to talk about that a little bit more a little later.
All right, so what happened after he asked her for the directions?
She shows me she didn't like his energy at all. She was trying to disengage. She was incredibly smart and she kept a good distance from the truck and also tried to get a good description of it just in case she needed information later on.
Definitely a good idea keeping that distance. Like I said, I would have ran the other way. Now, what happened after that?
I mean, obviously, this is a tragic story, but from what happened next, he was appreciative of the information. At least that's the vibe he gave her. He was trying to continue to carry on a conversation, asking her questions about herself. Now, that was making her very uncomfortable. She basically told him, whilst pedaling backwards, that she had to go. He was not complying from what she shows me, and he was getting a little bit more, I don't want to say aggressive, but like he was becoming more and more forward with her, and she was trying to avoid him as much as possible without causing any problems.
Definitely not taking no for an answer. And at this point, she has a bike. I would have went into someone's yard. You know, you can take a bike places, you just can't drive a car.
Yeah, but the issue was like she had stopped her bike. It takes a minute or so to, not a minute, but like a few seconds to get going on the bike, at least for me anyway. It is very true, though. She was put in a position where she wasn't on her bike per se, in the sense of like driving it, pedaling it away. I see that as she was slowly moving away from the situation, I see that he started to follow her. She did not have a good speed quite yet, and although he was old and gross looking, he had some speed on him. He was able to put something in her bike. I'm thinking he threw something like a piece of wood or a stick or even a rock. Now, she shows me that in that moment, when that happened, she flipped over her bike, like head over bar handles. And she shows me that's when she lost consciousness. And although people believe that she had left her Walkman there as a sign, from her, it was basically the area where she fell and he took her, and when she fell, that's when all of these items broke.
I mean, of course, he decided to do that to her. Now, did anyone else see this going on?
Here's the thing. I'm sensing two things when it comes to this. I do feel like she was out like a light for a brief moment. He put her in the vehicle, and I'm seeing that the door did not have the capability of opening. So she was stuck in the truck. She did start to come to, kind of confused. She was freaking out. He took her bike as well, and he put the bike in the back. And then I think that's when he took off.
You had mentioned that there were other people in the back of the truck.
Right, throwing a bike in there, back of the truck, like it ain't that big. From the photos, it's like a little camper. And I believe that he had two other people in there. One being a young child and the other being a girl. I believe the girl might have been in and around Tara's age.
Now, do we know who any of these people are?
I believe one of them to be Deborah Lansdale. She went missing almost to the date 3 years prior. On September 21st, her Porsche was left in an apartment complex in Albuquerque with no signs of foul play. I'm also sensing that Michael Henley, who was a 9-year-old boy who had vanished in April of 1988, was in the back. His remains was found in the Zuni Mountains in the 1990s. I do believe he was in there as well. I honestly believe that this man had abducted quite a few kids over time.
Did he live nearby or stay nearby? Because clearly this vehicle is something that would stand out Maybe even potentially them all living in that vehicle and holding them captive as he moves on.
I agree with that. I feel that energy. He used it as his little kidnapping machine whilst also living on it, but I mean bouncing from place to place.
I mean, that would be the perfect vehicle because you could move on to the next town or whatever.
I do feel like there was a change in color though at some point, because with Tara's case, it was the only case that had actually had witnesses see it, right? But yeah, anyways. Now, I do see that he split town. I don't think that he left New Mexico right away. I'm seeing that he wanted to go more of a rough area. Definitely has that trailer vibe. Like you could go to a trailer, but it's like an off grid trailer park, you know? Anyways, could have been a trailer maybe that the family members had owned. I don't even feel like this was his own personal vehicle. I don't even believe that he had any electricity or anything like that, really. There was no capability.
I mean, seclusion is definitely the place to go if you're going to groom or murder somebody. So, how far away from this was where Tara lived?
I'm seeing a lot of cactus related things, tumbleweeds. I'm seeing that it was very much desert area. And although there might be some trees, far and few between. I'm not seeing how far, but maybe like, I don't know, a couple hours. I would say it's more of a country area. There is a lot of trashy stuff going around. Like, it looks like there was garbage all over the place. I'm seeing broken down homes, broken down things. Like I said, far away from existence. Has a very distinctive garbagey smell. Yeah, he abducted people. He doesn't even get called out for his vehicle, basically. He never really actually gotten close to being identified up until this point, and he ended up having to leave for that reason. And according to Tara, I think that's why Florida was the destination to go.
Obviously, that photo that surfaced of Tara in that parking lot, what can you tell us about that?
There's a lot to say here, but if I'm going to be honest with you, I really believe that these kids had been taken for sex trafficking. I know that she's not a child, but I do see that she looked rather young, and I believe that he released Deborah because he wanted to kill her at that point, bury her. I feel like Deborah was really not a willing participant anymore, and he was looking and trying to find someone to kind of take her place. He was hoping for someone a little younger so he could eliminate Deborah, which is why he took Tara.
Now, when you say sex trafficking, do you mean that he was selling off these people?
You have to understand that back in the 80s, they didn't obviously have the internet to their disposal. They had these disgusting things in person. And although he didn't have electricity through the home, he did steal other people's electricity. He also would use like farmhouses. I keep seeing a barn where he would make his victims perform sexual acts on each other. And then he would sell those videos and images, obviously through his disgusting pedophile sex trafficking ring. And if the price was right, these people would have the ability to take or buy these kids slash young adults from them. Now, this person would sell them and send them off through the mail, or he would see them in person. He always needed to have at least two people in his possession, one girl, one boy. Although Tara was not the ideal age, he was looking for someone way younger. But from what I gather, he wasn't able to find anyone younger, so he wanted to get someone quick. So he decided to go forward and take her based upon the fact that she was alone and secluded. Otherwise, she wouldn't even have been on his radar.
I mean, yeah, her mother also knew something wasn't good. She even told her to start carrying mace, and she declined that.
Yeah, she didn't look at the world the way her mother knew it to be. She knew it was way bad before Tara even went missing.
Well, let's go back and talk about the photo that was found for a minute. Now, there was many different photos that were found, like the one that was found in this convenience store parking lot, and a lot of them looked like the children were tied up with duct tape and stuff. And it looks like Tara in that one photo, and she was also in the bed of the truck.
Yeah, so from what she shows me, she confirms that the photo is definitely her. She also confirms that the little boy that was in there as well was also sex trafficked. I believe that this perpetrator had stolen this boy. She shows me that this boy is now dead and has been for many, many years. I believe that he was murdered 2 years after this particular photo was taken.
Jesus, that is so sad and so sick. You know, they take all this innocence from these kids.
So, from what Tara shows me, this particular photo that we were referencing was when they were just kind of hanging out at the back of the truck as they normally do, driving around here and there. She was reading, which is why that book was there. And basically, they didn't stay in a place very long. Basically, he would just decide, okay, time to make videos, time to take photos for his perverted friend requests. And that's what happened. This is why you can see the book there. And she was fully clothed. It was more to entice the pedophiles. She did not often wear tape around her mouth or have her hands bound. That was just a pedo's request.
Now, do we know anything about the little boy in the picture?
Sadly, these disgusting, disturbing, creepy pedophiles trading children like Pokemon. Now, from what I gather, he was from some other state. I don't have a lot of details from him. I don't have his energy. He's not really around me. Tara shows me as soon as he was old enough, which in reality was approximately 10, 11 years old. They had no use for him anymore.
So what did this guy do with all these bodies?
Basically bury them in shallow graves, some not so shallow. He would just bury them. He also tried to bond with these kids and the adults that he would steal. And Tara shows me that he tried to show remorse while burying them, but in my opinion, it's not remorse. When the kids became too emotionally broken or checked out, that's when he no longer had any use for them, and then he'd start to decide on how to get rid of them.
The amount of people that get away with this is just, crazy. We don't really see anyone walking around with any sort of t-shirts or going to any sort of riots or anything like that saying, save the children from the pedophiles. You don't see that, but you definitely see people walking around wearing t-shirts saying abortion is murder or being gay is a sin, but you don't see anybody trying to stop these rings.
It's crazy because it's the same people that have these big ass t-shirts on are the ones that are hiding these children. Those people are distracting us or trying to distract us from their own perversion.
Absolutely. You guys are barking up the wrong tree.
It's fucking twisted, I'll
Now,
tell you.
Does Tara know anything about where she was or where her body was buried or what happened leading up to her death in any way?
Now, this has been tough, but she's showing me that he actually kept her around for many years, at least 8, maybe even a little longer. Now, it's because she took care of those kids very well. She fed them, she helped them, she would deal with them so that they, didn't piss him off. It was almost as if she was in the career to make sure that these kids stayed in line and didn't get killed. She did not want to have that on her hands or be the next person murdered or have these children murdered. So she was very obedient until she wasn't anymore.
I mean, she kicked in that fight or flight moment where she couldn't run. She knew she'd be caught again. She couldn't fight him off. So the only fight she could do was to stay alive and be obedient until she could figure something out.
Absolutely. Now, she shows me that for a long time she was trying to find a way out. She felt like she had some privileges that other abductees did not have. She worked really hard to maintain that level of trust, and she did it so she could get out. So she had a fighting chance. She shows me there was one moment where she was left to take care of all the kids. She shows me that there were about 6 in total, not including herself at this point. He had left to go on a road trip, and then she was going to try to escape. However, she didn't realize it was a trap. He was testing her. He didn't really plan to leave, wanted to see if she would actually try to leave him, and when she did, she was caught doing so. And that's when he decided that he no longer had any need for her and got himself involved with another female to take care of the kids. And then he murdered her, and she shows me that she doesn't want anyone to know how it was done because it was pretty gruesome.
That's a sick thing, that he's like, oh, yeah, I'm going to go away, which we all know he really wasn't. He's not going to leave 6, 7 kids to their own devices for any amount of time because they could escape. And he wanted to see how much he could trust her.
He also had gotten a little bit of a heads up from one of the kids that this was the plan, so he wanted to see if it in fact was real or not.
So sad. Now, does Tara have any distinctive locations of where she might be?
Now, she's showing me that she was buried in and around the month of like March, April, 8 years after. And I'm seeing Ohio. She shows me there was a lot of places with abandoned animals, or there were just a lot of animals roaming around. Could potentially be like a street named Cider Street. There's a yellow building which looked abandoned. There were broken windows as well, but that was the building right in front of where she was buried behind it.
Now, when it comes back to that photo, how did it end up getting to that convenience store parking lot in Florida in 1989?
It was purely an accident. It was left there. He did not intentionally mean to. I think he was just flicking through the photos and he dropped one or a couple. It's exactly where this photo was taken, pretty much. Although maybe not in the parking lot per se, but in and around the parking lot. I'm being showed that he used an old school camera. He was making his own photos, but he also had one of those, I don't know, he had an automatic camera or something too. But he also had a green room or a photo room or a dark room where he would do his photos. He had like a setup in his truck, but then he would take it to like abandoned places and make these photos so that he didn't have to take them to the store, because that would have definitely gotten flagged.
Absolutely. Now, is there anything else she'd like to share with us?
She said that she had an amazing life before she was abducted. Obviously, tragedy struck. She always thought of her family. She knew they were always fighting for her. She did have a child. Now, this child did not live. He died during labor, and she did not have any medical assistance. She didn't even know until much later that the baby had died in her stomach, and before you know it, he was born a stillborn. She struggled with the loss of that for a long time. She also shows me that she believed it really did mess up her reproductive system since she didn't get pregnant after that, but she also thought of it as a blessing, and she honestly would rather her child not make it alive than be another victim in the hands of this disturbing individual.
Absolutely. Either he would sell it off or use her to be a baby making machine at that point to continue on selling these kids off.
Absolutely.
Now, was the father of this baby the perpetrator?
No, one of the kids that were forced to sleep with her were the kid's father. He was a pretty young boy, I would say 14, 15.
So sad. Very sad. But I'm glad she definitely was here to share those details.
Yeah, we'll also eventually get into who he was, but I don't have a lot of details about this at that point. And we're going to cover those other two people that we talked about earlier, especially Deborah. She's got a lot to say.
Next week, guys, we're going to be covering the 8-Day Bride. Liz and I are trying to get through our Facebook albums of these approved cases so we can put new cases up there and take some of these off. And again, please go on there, comment, like the cases that are in there so we can start pushing those cases forward to get them done sooner.
Absolutely.
Until next time, guys, stay freaked out.